think I mentioned before that United Way spot that you just heard, that you hear that fellow who says, "Oh, that's way better." It's one of my old coworkers from way back in the late 1980s, and he's now a voiceover guy, and he's the president of a movie company. Well, some people made better career decisions than I did. 944, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX. Stretch run of today's program. Thank you for joining us. Now, I've been telling you it's going to get warmer outside, and my credibility has been stretched over the last couple of months, but truly, we are headed for summer despite we haven't even had a volcanic eruption to make it this cold, but it's been downright nasty for a good part of the spring. But it will be getting warmer, and if you have not yet fired up that air conditioner, you don't want to do it at the last minute and then find out you need some work done when it's 105 degrees outside. Whether you need repairs right away or just would like to avoid problems in the future, you can call the pros at Ramsey Heating and Electric. Make sure the job is done right the first time and set yourself up for a great summer. You can see them at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley or give them a telephone call. I'd recommend you do that too, 678-0459. Ramsey Heating and Electric, where they sell warm winters and cool summers. Once more, that's Ramsey Heating and Electric. You know, in Canada, as we were just telling you, you will soon be going to jail if you end up if you see your friend Henry coming down the street and you say, and he's wearing a skirt, and you laugh at his skirt and, ask him if that's a kilt or if he suddenly decided that he's now going to be known as Henrietta, you could go to jail for 2 years. Well, what if you're a person of faith and you don't believe in this sort of thing? I guess you have to keep your mouth shut. Speaking of faith and keeping your mouth shut, since I was talking about the Christian Post, I highly recommend you sign up for this. I get it in my daily email every day, and there's 5 or 6 stories usually devoted to issues related to faith and culture as well. This one comes out of England. Justin Welby, who is he's the guy he's the Archbishop of Canterbury, which means he runs the Anglican Communion. That would be Episcopal Church in the United States. It's Anglican around the rest of the world, and they have about 70 million members still. It says 88 million, but I think that number is that's a bit old now because if you just look at the rolls of Episcopalians in the United States, and it's they're going the way of the dodo bird. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, is advising Christians not to talk about their faith unless they're asked to do so. Well, you know why? You could offend Ahmed and Muhammad. That's why. And we wouldn't want to do that because then that would make them angry as they take over our countries and impose their faith upon us, and we shouldn't be doing that. His comments came as part of an interfaith gathering held at Lambeth Palace in London last Thursday, which included leaders from the nation's Jewish and Muslim communities, as well as other faith traditions. When you hear someone say faith traditions, they're talking religion. That's a liberal thing. Faith traditions. You'll hear Hillary Clinton say that often. Oh, and people of other faith traditions. You're right. That means she doesn't know what she's talking about. So he doesn't want to offend any of the Muslims in London or anywhere else in England because eventually they're going to take over. And as Archbishop of Canterbury, he would prefer to keep his head. So I suppose that's why he's saying, Psst, if you're a Christian, don't tell anybody. The writer goes on to say in his speech, Welby also denounced violence against religious minorities, especially noting the apparent rise in anti-Semitism in recent years. Why is there more anti-Semitism in Europe? Could it be the influx of tens of millions of Muslims? Well, yes, but we don't want to say that because, again, it would offend them, and therefore, and by the way, the crucifix I'm wearing around my neck, I'll throw that away if that helps you feel better. I'll tell you what, I'll just convert. Well, we'll save you some time. Again, you wonder what type of people these are that are defending their faiths with such vigor. I know I was making fun of the French earlier, but remember they interbred with the English for many, many years. 948, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. It's 52, and you're up next. You're on air.
Hey, you just said that she uses the words faith traditions. All they're trying to do is control the language and redefine religion as something else. That's what they're doing.
Well, they don't want it in the public square. They don't want anybody talking about it outside of Sundays.
We have the right to religion. We don't have the right to faith traditions.
Right. Well said. Thank you for the call, sir. 736-0300. Just like Mr. Obama was working for many, many years, he kept referring to freedom of worship. Well, you see, when he would say that, there's a reason he was doing that, because worship is what you do. Some people do it on Saturdays. Some people do it on Sundays. I realize there are a handful here that do it on Fridays. But you go in most cases, the average American who still does it goes to church and they spend an hour inside that box, that big brick box or whatever it's made out of, wooden box or brick box, and then they come out. And according to, if you're making the argument it's just freedom of worship, then you have the right to go inside that box for 1 hour a week. But when you come out of that box, you are not supposed to talk about that, and you're not supposed to apply anything you learned there to your daily life. Well, unless of course you're from a liberal denomination and you like to make sure that that Johnny and Jimmy can get married and the like, then of course you're supposed to push that faith. But you cannot be pushing any traditional biblical faith because that would upset that apple cart. But people have been pressuring Barack Obama, at least, somewhat of a pushback, not a lot, but somewhat of a pushback, because the phrase is freedom of religion. There are 5 liberties guaranteed in the First Amendment. Freedom of religion is one of them. It's not freedom of worship. 736-0300. Bill Colley with you this morning on Top Story. You're next. You're on KLIX.
Good morning.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
You're doing a great job. I like the way you're running the radio show. And by the way, with this gender bathroom thing, I told my husband if I ever walked into Target bathroom and found a man in there, he might have to come bail me out of jail. Because I will not put up with it. I don't care what their rules are. We need to go back to the 50s and 60s where people had common sense.
Amen. Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
And can I add to that? I have not been in a Target bathroom now in years. And I have not, I was in Target, I think just before Christmas, and I am not going back. And then I was reading a post from a friend yesterday. He said that Macy's has gotten on board with this insanity. You'd have to drive considerable distance, right, to go to a Macy's? Well, maybe not too far away. But once more, what are they thinking? If no one's showing up at your shop anymore because they don't want to put up with all of this crap, how is that good for business? Well, they want to sell products to those guys who think they're girls. That's what they want to do. But they're not realizing. Remember when A&E, it used to be called Arts and Entertainment. I think they just go by A&E now. The cable channel, when they decided to get rid of the Robinsons and Duck Dynasty because, well, we don't like their traditional views and they're hurtful and they're not inclusive and they're wrong. Boy, were the executives who, they're unchurched. They're not what you'd call faithful people. And what do they know, right? They were shocked by the public backlash. Gee, we had no idea that so many Americans actually believed in God. So, sorry, put the show back on the air and please leave us alone. You're up next. You're on the air with Bill Colley. It's 9:52.
Yeah, I have a question for you. My daughter attends a public school here in Twin Falls. And yesterday there were people out handing Bibles out on public school grounds.
On the grounds?
Yes.
Ooh, boy, I guess
contacted the principal, and she informed me that the superintendent okayed it. Now, I have no problem with them handing out Bibles, but what's going to happen if they're handing out the book of the Quran or something?
I don't know. I guess I would just toss it into the garbage on the way in the door.
Well, I would too.
Are they forcing these Qurans or Bibles on anyone?
I don't believe so. They were just handing them out. I was just always under the impression that it was a school ground, and that was not acceptable.
Well, I don't know that anybody was harmed by it, but I thank you much for the call. If someone actually takes their hand and they grab that Bible and all of a sudden, you see steam coming up from their hands and they writhe in pain, I guess we've identified the old scratch, as he used to be called back in the day, of Daniel Webster's time, but we've spotted the devil on campus. You're next, and you're on the air on KLIX.
Hey, I'll make this quick, Bill. On that Target issue, is their update on that is the CEO. They have lost $10 million because of the bathroom. And he comes out and says, it's okay, it's just a handful of people.
They can't afford to lose that at Target. They've already had to close up all the Canadian stores,
Right.
and they're sucking wind in this country. So, if they're looking to put themselves out of business, they've chosen the right strategy.
Yeah, they're really arrogant, aren't they?
Yeah, I'd say
Right.
that's well said there. The number is 736-0300. By the way, if someone handed you a Quran and you threw it in the garbage, would they have to kill you, depending on their religious views? There's a question that I think we could bring up. I don't think it hurts anybody. Now, if there are enough objections, and this is really happening where people are passing out Bibles on school grounds, if there are enough objections, and if a lot of liberals show up at the next school board meeting and say, we don't want God anywhere near our community, no, please, it has to go, then I guess they'll have to deny the Bibles being passed out. But nobody is saying, you must take this Bible, and no one is then saying, you must read this Bible. And I would assume it would be if someone is passing out the Gita or the Quran or Dianetics, it wouldn't matter. I mean, and let's be honest, most kids don't do a lot of reading in the first place. You're up next, and you're on the air on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Go ahead.
Good morning, Bill. When Target stock goes so low that George Soros goes and buys it, because that's what he does, how is he going to handle the situation?
I think George is already using the ladies' room. Anyway, that settles that. Soros is a strange dude. On the other hand, you would think that his maker might soon call him home. Although where he's called home, it's likely going to be mightily hot. Well, it was hot for a lot of his co-religionists when he was helping shove them into the ovens in Europe. So I don't think George has, he doesn't believe in that sort of stuff anyway, which is, why he has tried to have so much influence in this temporal realm. I do want to point out, coming up after our program today, news from Fox at 10 o'clock. Rush Limbaugh is well from 9 until noon, or 10 until 1, excuse me, and followed by Sean Hannity. He's up after the news at 1 o'clock on Fox. Glenn Beck this afternoon after 4 o'clock news, and Dave Ramsey tonight. Just to give you somewhat of an idea of what's ahead on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Here's a story out of the Washington Examiner today. Hate crime hoaxers should be prosecuted. In an article for the New York Post, Kyle Smith argues it's time to start treating hate crime hoaxers as criminals. And he raised the example of the recent, speaking of people who are pastors and shouldn't be, Whole Foods cake hoaxer, Reverend Jordan Brown, a gay man who claimed he ordered a cake that said love wins, but when he got home he claimed he noticed that someone at the bakery had added the word, I can't say that one on the air, but sometimes when people are smoking cigarettes, they refer to the cigarettes. Well, in England, they do by this name. But turned out he added the word and then made the claim and then tried to sue. This guy claims he's a man of God. First of all, he's violating the Old Testament to no end, and then some portions of Romans as well, by his activities with other men. And then he turns around and claims, trying to sue Whole Foods, that they called him a really bad name because of his lifestyle choice. And then it turned out he lied. And you wonder who would even go to this guy's church in the first place because of his anti-biblical lifestyle. And now that he has proven himself to be a liar and a hoaxer, and he cost people a lot of money in all of this because he was trying to send him to jail. Send him to Canada and let little Trudeau Pierre Jr. there, or whatever he's called, lock him away for a couple of years. And then when he gets out, they can all march together in that parade in Toronto. Enough is enough. At some point, we've got to put down. We just got to say enough and realize that we're all going to be called and we're all going to be tried. And you know what? Welcome the trial when it comes. 9:59. God willing, if the creek don't rise, they'll allow me to do this all over again tomorrow. It's 53. And I hope you have a great day. I hope you at least try. Well, you know what? The sun will come up whether we're here or not. And that's always a good sign.